Welcome to the Retro Network Podcast, the flagship show for the Retro Network Podcast channel. Get ready for the latest pop culture news, interviews, and topical discussions on all that stuff we grew up with and just can't leave in the past. And now, here are your hosts for the Retro Network Podcast, Jason and Mickey.
Hello, listeners. Welcome back to the Retro Network Podcast with Jason and Mickey. How are you, sir?
I am feeling fine.
Good. Better than hanging in there. Or I can't remember what you said last week.
Trying to get by.
Trying to get by, yeah. Good to talk with you again, and good to have you guys listening. And we're going to have a fun show for you today. We've got our MTV memories coming up. We've invited a guest to come on and remember those old days with music videos and everything. We've got Eric coming up, and we've got a fun hotline interview as well, finishing out Batman 89 for June. But, man, you've had a fun trip this last week. You went to Kings Island. How did that go?
I had a busy trip this weekend. Now, Kings Island and Great Wolf Lodge up in Mason, Ohio were both wonderful. The trip up was good. I'm not used to, after spending a decade traveling for a living, I'm not used to traveling with rookies. So we hadn't made it 100 miles and had already stopped 2 or 3 times. And I texted a guy that used to travel with me. I'm like, they're killing me. And he said, not everybody can be professionals. But the weather held most of the time. The late afternoon of the last day at the theme park, it downpoured, but the kids didn't care. They still rode coasters in the rain, and nice. It was a good, safe trip. Everybody had a great time.
So how was the theme, the 80s theme?
It was pretty much non-existent throughout the park, all except for one little area. And unfortunately, this whole trip, as you know, was jinxed. We went to the theme park on Tuesday, and that's the only day of the week they do not do the totally 80s music show. So I missed out. But, the week that, that's their summer theme. The week theme when we were there was Grand Carnival. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, it rained out all the carnival events that afternoon, too.
Wow.
So,
wow. Well, at least you got to ride some rides then.
Yeah. Yeah,
see, when you were talking about it, I just had in my head like people were throwing down cardboard and breakdancing, and there's people carrying boom boxes around. And
well, I tried the cardboard thing, and security told me I had to get up. So,
so you're going to hurt yourself.
Yeah, you're too old for that.
Well, we've got our road trip coming up. We are definitely not rookies, and I will hold to the. You're going to wait 3 more X's to go to the bathroom.
Hey, let me tell you, when we were traveling for a living, we had a rule that it's the strongest bladder that determines the bathroom stops, not the weakest. So,
well, yeah, it's different when you got the little ones with you, and I don't know, maybe that's why we left them in diapers for so long, because we're making this trip every year.
Just take an empty mason jar with you; they'll be fine.
That's right. Yep. Save that Mountain Dew bottle there, son. You might need it. But yeah, so we've got that trip coming up. We travel each year back to my hometown in PA, and it's a long trip. I call it my drive-cation, and we split it up because it is like 18 hours or something ridiculous. But
wow, we
stop in Kentucky to visit my sister-in-law, and then we drive the rest of the way after that the next day. So it's long. We try to find little stuff along the way. There's this. There's actually a couple dinosaur parks up along, I think it's I-65 that we've stopped at. Well, there's one on I-65. And there's one in Virginia too. I think it's Dinosaur Land or something. And they have these huge, like, big replicas of dinosaurs. And I remember when my middle son was younger, he was totally into dinosaurs, and we stopped there and just blew his mind. If they'd have been animatronic, then we probably would have been screaming and running, or something.
Well, I traveled a lot. I traveled a lot with my old man when I was young, because he traveled all the time, and that seemed to be the best part. The vacations for me was not necessarily the end destination, but all the little roadside attractions along the way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've stopped. Remember stopping at the Louisville Slugger Museum. You ever been there?
No, but that sounds really cool.
Oh, it's fun. They have this huge bat leaning up against the side of the building that's like 3 stories tall, and you go inside, you watch them how they make the bats, and they have like a little baseball museum in there as well. That was fun. That was a fun little stop we did several years ago. But yeah, try to find those little places to stop so they'll be a little entertained and make that trip not so long. They're not staring at their screens the whole time, you know.
Gosh, think back to when we were kids and had to take trips that long. There wasn't a little screen to stare at.
No, I remembered riding in the back window of our Monte Carlo playing those like little Radio Shack handheld games. Yeah. Back before even Game Boy was around, you know.
Mm-hmm.
That was those are my trips. But
I remember those long trips not even having those video games when I was young. You're just praying that you stop at McDonald's for lunch so you can get a Happy Meal toy just to have something to do in the back seat for the next 6 hours.
Yeah, and pray to God I had a playland, you know, something that you could get out there and hide up in so you wouldn't have to get back in the car so soon.
Yeah. Hey, but, you know, we'll save the rest of the vacation talk because in July that we're doing a whole theme week on summer vacation on the site. So
cool.
We may tell some more of these old stories like that then.
Yeah, sounds great. And just a small little programming note, we will be off for our regular podcast, which would drop on July 2nd, I believe, because I will be in PA and road tripping and all that. So we've got a fun new podcast to drop on that day, and we're going to call it TRN Game Night. And what we are doing is getting a bunch of the TRN staff together, and I've put a couple little game shows, I don't know what you want to call it, little fun games together that we're going to do during the podcast. And the first one coming up, we're going to do one called Pop Culture Clash. And it's basically trivia, but more of like a knockout style where you have to keep getting answers correctly or you're eliminated. And then we get a chance for people to jump back in if they miss a question and get like a second chance to get back in the game. So that will drop on July 2nd. And then we have another one in the bank too, a really fun one. I bought this little game called Boombox, and it's kind of like the game Apples to Apples. Have you ever played that, Mickey?
No.
It's basically you get dealt cards and you get an adjective, crazy, and all your cards have like pop culture characters, figures, you know, from presidents to celebrities to whatever. So crazy. If you got like Mike Tyson, that would be like the perfect card to hand in and, you know, the people judge. But this one you use like music. So you have a scenario like the perfect song at the top of climbing Mount Everest or something, you know, and
Standing on Top of the World, Van Halen.
That's what I said. Okay, so that's actually in the podcast.
Oh,
so,
wow.
So what we're doing a little twist because we can't like deal cards out. So we're coming up with songs like right off the top of our head to match whatever the situation is. We're calling it Situation Jukebox. So that's another part of TRN Game Night that you're going to get soon. And I may flip-flop those dates. We might go ahead and debut the Pop Culture Clash maybe next week and save that music one for that Tuesday that we would normally release our show. But yeah, be looking for them, man. This is going to be fun, and I hope we get all of our staff together to at least come on one of these. You can get to know them a little bit better, and we'll test their knowledge and retro cred, as we say. I'm always nervous when we get to this. You're going to lose some retro cred because, yeah, there's a couple where I have to admit, man, I've never heard that song before. What? Yeah, that's happened. So.
Well, I absolutely love the idea of TRN Game Night because, you know, when we were talking about it a little bit, it just hit my brain that we could do all kinds of different games, and the listeners never know what the game is going to be from time to time. Because I know you've done the Retro Jeopardy in the past. And I would love for you to resurrect that because I want to be a player in that. And now we have an outlet to do that. We have TRN Game Night.
We do. Yeah, I put Jeopardy together. I have this vision of doing like a match game, and we'll have like the TRN staff will get 4 or 5 of us, and we'll get like 2 contestants on the show, maybe listeners. and try to match them, like the old game show.
Huh.
That theme song gets stuck in my head. It's just that 70s whomp, But
Well, I have an idea. As soon as I can record it, I may have to go outside of the regular TRN staff, but I want to do like a Southern retro trivia game because I've got the perfect name for it, Dollywood Squares.
I like it.
A lot of
squares,
a lot of Dukes of Hazzard trivia, Andy Griffith, Leonard Skinner, all the Southern end of retro.
Dollywood Squares. That's perfect. Yeah, maybe we'll do like Dollywood Jeopardy or something.
Yeah,
something like that. Yeah, that's another topic. I'm gonna have to start writing down topics for potential upcoming shows because we need to talk game shows. I love game shows, and they just debuted. Did you see this like past week? They debuted a new version of Pressure Luck.
I did not because I'm a cord cutter, so if it debuts on actual television, it's a little harder for me to find sometimes.
Yeah, I haven't checked to see if maybe it's on Hulu or something like that, but I have not been able to watch an episode. I've seen the little previews pop up in my like Instagram. I'm sure I'm the targeted audience person
yes.
on their sponsored ads, but I have not watched an episode yet to see how well. I think it's Elizabeth Banks that hosts it. But it looks fun.
Well,
looks kind of retro, the setup and everything. The way they got the contestants lined up.
It looks like ABC's official YouTube channel has loaded clips of it up onto YouTube, so I can get a feel for it that way.
Yeah, we'll have to check that out. But
well, actually, the entire episode is on YouTube.
Okay, well there you go. I'm gonna have to go check it out as soon as we get off here.
And speaking of Pressure Luck, if you're a big game show fan or especially Pressure Luck fan, go back in the archives of theretronetwork.com. Look for Big Money, No Whammies, the Michael Larson story. Michael Larson pretty well broke the bank on Pressure Luck 1984. Won way more money than was thought humanly possible. And that's because it wasn't possible for most humans. But he had a system in play. So
that documentary is one of my favorites of all time. And I believe it first aired on the Game Show Network. I've seen it pop up in like different sections on YouTube, and I think actually Daily Motion has the whole thing. But the story is just so much fun to listen to. It's sad, really, hearing his story and what happened after he won over $100,000 on the show.
Yeah.
But
yeah, the second half of his story is, like you're right, it's more fascinating than the first half.
Yeah. I can vividly remember watching that show when it was first aired, because it only aired that one time and they wouldn't air it anymore. I was I was up the street. It was during the summer. The neighbor lady was babysitting me during the day, and I would go down in her basement and watch game shows during the day. And I remember watching that, and I remember when his screen in front of him, because it always had the $sign and you had 5 digits, and it went to 6 digits. He went over 100,000 and the $sign disappeared. And that just like blew my mind.
Right.
But yeah, it's a great article to go check out and a great story if you're a game show fan. Have you seen the Price is Right one that's on, I think it's on Netflix now.
You've told me about it.
The Perfect Bid is the name of it.
Yeah, I mentioned to my wife I was going to watch it. And so, like, the next day, I mentioned it again, like, I'd like to watch this tonight. She goes, well, I already watched it yesterday. I'm like, are you kidding me? She says it's really good, too.
It's great. Yeah, it's great. You got to watch it. Download it and put it on your phone or something for the next trip.
Yeah, I'll figure something out.
All right. Well, upcoming on the podcast, we've got the hotline interview I mentioned with Paxton Hawley of the I Read Movies podcast. He's also on Nerd Lunch and Cult Film Club podcasts. And he's got a real interesting take. He loves movie novelizations. And we're going to talk about the Batman 89 one. He's got a podcast that's already dropped now that you can listen to that tells about all the differences that's in the book that's not in the movie. But we had a great conversation about his experience, too, with Batman 89. And that'll wrap up the month of June with our tributes and an interview series on the hotline. And then we've got our main discussion coming up on MTV with Eric. That was really fun to talk to him about our early MTV memories and some of those music videos that made an impact on our lives during that era when MTV actually showed music videos.
I wish they'd get back to that.
I wish they would too. Absolutely. But first,
what do you think? Do you think artists of today would be down for producing as many music videos if the artists of yesterday did just for MTV? I think in this modern world, I think they'd see more value in trying to produce a video just to monetize their own social media and YouTube accounts versus MTV. So and may be the cat may be out of that bag.
Yeah, I think that's the reason why you're not getting it on MTV, because they can't monetize it
right.
Unless they work out some kind of deal with them and showing it, or have a sponsor or something for their debut. Yeah, I don't know. It's just a different era in which we live in. We want that instant. If there's a video out, I'm not going to wait until 12 o'clock to, on this day to watch it on MTV. I want to go to YouTube now and watch it,
Yeah.
Just a different era. But
yeah, well, and I don't want to drag us on too long, but I think that's been the downfall of late night television too. Because one of the big draws back in the 80s and early 90s was, Aerosmith's going to be on Letterman tonight. You never got to see Aerosmith live. You may see them once every few years if they came through where you lived, but you never saw them live.
Right.
And, so you tuned in, but now you can just go to YouTube and watch 1,000 clips of them from different concerts from all eras of Aerosmith. And, you have no point to stick around and stay up late to see things like that. So this modern world of everything at your fingertips has destroyed a lot of our
Sucks.
What? Well, no, I don't want to say it sucks because we benefit from it too. I want to watch an old episode of He-Man. There it is.
Well, I mean, I understand that as well, but there's
double-edged
something,
sword.
Yeah, that tangibility too of music and movies and everything, all this streaming stuff. I miss just popping a tape in a VCR or in a Walkman, or I don't know.
The biggest thing that is lost to our kids today is just the concept of anticipation.
Yeah.
You used to look so forward to an event in your life or a show or something you really enjoyed, and you'd have to wait all week, and the anticipation built made it better. The kids don't have that these days. They're missing out on that.
Very true. Man, we're being very philosophical today.
But, well, you know what, though? We'll wrap it up, put a bow on it. That's why the Retro Network exists. For people like us who remember those times and want to relive those times.
Perfect. All right. Well, we're going to end this first segment now, and let's go into some recurrent events headlines from this week.
All right.
So, looking back at this past week, Ultimate Classic Rock launched a brand new website dedicated to Prince and his music, ultimateprince.com. It's now live and has 450 stories already published. So I've looked at this now. Of course, I love Prince and I love what they're doing here. I'm sure that they had to get permission to get all this stuff online, but it sounds like they took a little page out of our book with all these backstories probably moved over from their main site about Prince, and boom, there you go, brand new site.
Well, we're trendsetters.
Which is kind of what we've done with TRN, but yeah,
say they've got like 4,000 pieces or something. Is that what you just said?
Is that like 50 stories, like articles?
Oh, just okay. I was gonna say, is that user generated stories or no? But I guess it comes from
I think it was all pulled from their main site, and then they've got links to music videos and his whole catalog. So probably won't be long before you get, Ultimate Michael Jackson or Ultimate.
Well, I doubt we get that one for a while.
Whatever.
Because all the stories about him these days would be a little negative.
True. So that's a fun new site to check out. This one is, you've been over to Twitter and you've seen these bots that they set up, to every time you say something about RoboCop, you get a comment back saying, I'd buy that for $1,
That's cool. No, I
Anyway,
haven't seen that.
there's a Twitter bot set up now. It's at wiki_TMNT, and it tweets wiki article titles that are singable to the 80s Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles theme song from the cartoon.
Oh, Lord.
So I was just thinking, as I'm seeing this and I'm seeing the headlines, I'm kind of scrolling through their Twitter feed. We can do that with our podcast channel.
Oh, no.
Yeah, Retro Network Podcast Channel.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, man. So we need our own wiki page, and then they can tweet that out for us.
I'll get started on the wiki page, and they can tweet that, and you can record a new intro song to the pod and sing it to your heart's content.
It's the small things in life, Mick. It's the small things.
It is. But you know what? Now that you've said that, I'm gonna spend the rest of my day. This stuff will be popping into my head. I'll be walking around at work speaking in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle theme song speak.
I'm easily amused. I need a T-shirt. Easily amused. Okay. This was interesting. I saw this week they announced all of the celebrities getting their own Hollywood Walk of Fame stars, and they chose Batman to get his own star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. So I just was running through my head, wouldn't it be fun to have like all the actors who played Batman, well, obviously not Adam West since he's passed away now, but wouldn't it be fun to have all of them together at the ceremony? It would be very fitting. Yeah. I'm sure they'll have like Bob Kane or maybe even Bill Finger, if they are including him on stuff now. They're the creator of Batman to accept the star, but I don't know. I don't know too many of these like character stars that they've chosen. I don't even know if they've done this before, but it was interesting to me. If you're going to do one, this is as good as one you could do, because Batman as a character has probably sold more tickets and moved more merchandise than most actor stars that are on the Walk of Fame. True. Very true. Some other ones, they're getting their star this year, or I guess maybe next year. Julia Roberts, that was surprising. She hadn't had one yet. Yeah, that's pretty well deserved, too. And then kind of in our retro-themed minds, there's Billy Idol. He's going to get one, and Christina Applegate. Huh. So there you go. I didn't realize Billy Idol was really famous enough for that. Christina Applegate, I could see. But, yeah, Julia Roberts, that's probably really long overdue. Because not only is she just great in everything she's in, she's a legitimate draw, you know. Yeah, the movies that she's headlined have done really well. At some points in her career, she was the highest paid actress, I believe. You know, probably around the what was the movie with the water company and the Aaron Brockovich? Yes. Yeah, around that's what I was thinking too. That was probably the peak of her power right there. Yeah. Okay, moving right along, movie news. We've got Halloween 2 reportedly in the works, according to Collider. Now, I guess this is a sequel to the 2018 reboot or remake. I don't know. I don't get into the horror stuff mainly, but Jamie Lee Curtis is expected to be back, and the release date is assumed to be next October in 2020. So you talk about milking a franchise. You know, how many Halloween movies have they produced? Maybe 5 or 6? A lot, but apparently they're still making money. And, you know, we're always worried about what people think of taking our retro card away. The only Halloween movie I watched was the 1998 Halloween H2O. Oh, really? which was, I guess, panned as the worst ever Halloween movie, but you started with the bottom. You can work your way up. Yeah, yeah. No, I think October I'll be watching some of them though. I don't remember ever sitting down to watch, like popping in a tape or something back in the day to watch a Halloween movie. I do remember seeing probably the first one, the edited version, whatever, on cable. Maybe the first couple. So, you know, whatever that was sanitized for back in the day, but. I'm not the horror person. I like what you would call PG horror, and like Ernest Scared Stupid. Yeah, the Burbs I'd put in there. You know, stuff like that. That's not gory, but still a little bit on that horror edge. Even Ghostbusters, to a certain extent, I guess you could call like PG horror. But,
It's weird. I'm not an overly big fan of horror movies, but the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre is in my top 10 movies of all time, which is just really contradictory.
Well, it's just a matter of what you connect with over your childhood, I think. And if you connect more with the blockbusters and stuff, and don't get into the cult movies or even a certain genre like horror, you're not gonna have those in your top movies of all time. But anyway, I thought that was interesting that Jamie Lee Curtis is still. I remember her being on Letterman one time, and I don't know if her phone rang on purpose or if Dave asked her to hear her ringtone, and it was the Halloween theme. So she must be like, Dan Aykroyd, who probably sleeps in the Ghostbuster suit every night. And she just can't wait to get to the next Halloween movie.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I got a food review item for you coming up, Mickey, for you and your daughter. Kentucky Fried Chicken has announced a partnership with Cheetos to make a Cheetos chicken sandwich. I'm not making this up. And here is the official description. Made by coating a juicy hand-breaded extra crispy chicken fillet with special Cheetos sauce and placing it on a toasted bun with mayo and a layer of crunchy Cheetos. Tell me how that sounds for your review channel.
It sounds reviewable because we review all kinds of food, good and bad. So I don't.
Cheetos on a chicken sandwich.
Well, let me say, I'll break it down a little bit. I can see taking crushed Cheetos and mixing them in with the flour that you bread chicken with to fry it, and I believe that would be pretty good. Give it a little cheesy taste. I have put layers of Cheetos on other sandwiches in the past, and that's pretty good. I just don't know, though, if KFC can pull this one off. But I'm glad you've told me about it because you mentioned me and my daughter. For people who don't know, she has a food review channel on YouTube. You can find it by searching Our Table. And it is right up our alley for something to try, whether it's good or bad. I'm glad you brought that up. I'll have to pass that along to her, too. It's interesting in a bad way, if that makes sense. It's,
right.
You're wondering, like, how big of a train wreck is this? Because it's not like something you look at and say, oh my gosh, that's going to be like their new main menu item. No, this is like, I don't know why they're doing it.
Yeah.
I don't see it sticking around long.
KFC is one of those places that they just don't care. Because if it's popular somewhere, they'll try it, or if they can team up and create something that's weird, they'll do it. The one that got me just a couple months ago was when they did chicken and waffles. And up north, that was a huge staple in restaurants. Now, we didn't use syrup. We used gravy with our chicken and waffles. So it's a little bit different down south here when you're dumping syrup on top like what you would a regular waffle. But I had to give it to them, man. They got me. I stopped in, had to try it, and I don't know if I'm going to go for this because I am a little bit lactose intolerant, and special Cheetos sauce just screams like my throat swelling up.
Yeah, you're right. KFC does it. They have been very surprising. They're Nashville hot. I've traveled this whole country, so I've had a lot of these versions of chicken before KFC brought them, and their versions are always not even close to as good as the real thing. But they're still good in their own right. Their Nashville hot chicken is good.
Very good.
The one that really surprised me last year was their dill pickle chicken. And a lot of people saw that and they're like, these people are crazy. But that was phenomenal. And what most people don't realize, everybody who loves Chick-fil-A, they brine their chicken in dill pickle juice, folks. I mean, you've been eating dill chicken, you just didn't realize it.
Right, exactly.
So I will leave a little room in my brain to be open about this sandwich because they have surprised me in the past. So I'll try it and see what it.
Yeah. Now,
it's interesting though.
Didn't Burger King have like like huge Cheetos with cheese sauce or something at one time, or maybe it was a different brand.
I don't. It rings a bell.
Yeah,
Maybe it was macaroni. Was it macaroni
Could've-
stuffed Cheeto things or
yes,
something?
I think that's what it was. I think that's what
Yeah.
it was.
I'd have to
Anyway.
ask my oldest daughter. She's the resident macaroni and cheese expert.
All right, well, there's one for your list. I'll be looking forward to seeing that review.
Cool.
All right, here's another fun one. Boomerang, the cable network, released the first trailer for its new Scooby-Doo and Guess Who series this week. And I don't know if you've seen this or not, Mickey, but of course you get the regular Mystery Inc. gang, and they're going to have a special guest like they used to do back in the day with the like new Scooby-Doo mysteries.
Uh-huh.
So the list I have here of their special guests for episodes include Wonder Woman, Sherlock Holmes, and now you're going to get a little bit weird because you get, actually Batman as well, who will be voiced by Kevin Conroy, who did the voice for the animated series. I thought that was interesting. But now you get some weird celebrities. You're going to get Ricky Gervais, Whoopi Goldberg, Wanda Sykes, Weird Al, Kenan Thompson, Steve Urkel, who will be voiced by Jaleel White. And then the first episode is NBA basketball player Chris Paul.
Huh.
So that's about as wide of a variety of celebrities as you could get for a TV show.
They called me, but I was too busy to do the voice work, or you know. It's a little bit disappointing because when I think of Boomerang, I think of just classic Hanna-Barbera. No new shows, just all classic stuff. But I do love me some Scooby-Doo. And the Scooby-Doos that had the guest stars back in the day, like the Harlem Globetrotters and the Three Stooges and Batman and Robin and Sonny and Cher, those were all really good. So, yeah, I will give this a shot. I'm looking at screenshots right now since you mentioned it. The animation style, it looks pretty good, pretty classic Scooby-Doo-ish. If the screenshots I'm seeing are from the Guess Who version. So, yeah, I think it's got some potential.
Yeah, you can still tell it's the new style animation, but just from the logo and everything, I hope they're going to tap into those old Scooby-Doo mysteries and we get a little bit of that vibe as we're watching. Because I'm excited now, and I have no idea if they're going to be able to release these to like YouTube or somewhere, watch them online through the Boomerang, but because I don't get Boomerang.
Have you seen Boomerang's app? It's like $5 a month.
I have seen it. I have not subscribed, but
me either. But mainly because at the time they just didn't have a lot of content on it. But I don't know about now. And if they would put stuff like this on there, it'd probably be worth at least 1 month at $5 to check it out.
Yeah,
so I may have to go that route.
I may too, especially if I get a Steve Urkel episode. I mean, come on, man. And Weird Al. Wow.
Yeah.
That's some good. Those are my kind of celebrities, Anyway, so that was fun to see that's happening, and then thanks to the Retro Gaming Magazine, I saw that Space Invaders is getting its own board game adaptation for the 40th anniversary. They did a successful Kickstarter for the board game. It just ended, so I'm not sure what the plans are to get it in retail stores. But the basic edition was just $20. So it looks more just like a fun, simple game, nothing real complicated. And the artwork looks pretty fantastic as well. So I like this. I remember back in the day they used to adapt video games into board games. I think, Pac-Man, of course. And I think Centipede had one. Trying to remember some other ones that had their own board games, but I'm always intrigued by this stuff that you're taking a retro property and putting it into something new,
Yeah, it can go good or bad.
Well, that's true, but Space Invaders is so classic and just that 8-bit style and everything that surrounds that. I'm immediately drawn in. I remember at a comic book store here locally just a couple years ago, I was digging through one of their $5 bins or something, and I found a mouse and a mouse pad that had Space Invaders on it. That was like an instant buy.
Well, I've not played it, but there is a Space Invaders dice game. I've seen it on Amazon.
Oh, yeah?
I don't know what it entails or how you play, but it's been out for a little while. It's just called Space Invaders Dice. I just now turned it up. It's from turn 1.
Cool.
Matter of fact, for people listening who may be interested in checking it out, I am putting a link on the main site, theretronetwork.com. You can go check it out.
Yes. Got our new products
and it's only,
section there. We
endorse it.
It's
only $10 too.
Oh,
it
sweet.
says comes with a set of 6 dice, and one of the features says cool retro looking dice.
I'm sold.
So, product description: the arcade classic blasts back. Grab your 6-sided arsenal and save the planet before it's too late in Space Invaders Dice. A fun, fast-paced tabletop game that plays just like the classic arcade game. Well, I seriously doubt that. Play solo or compete against up to 3 friends for the record high score. Huh. Well, that's interesting.
Cool. All right. Well, we'll put that up on the site. Here's one I'm throwing in there you may not have seen. A friend of mine, Chad Young, posted on my Facebook page yesterday. There's a promo out, a preview trailer for History Channel's Car Week. Now, I normally am not a huge History Channel buff. We'll pull up some shows or documentaries or stuff on the app every once in a while through our Roku, but this is going to be like appointment television for me. They are doing a battle of the 80s supercars, like a race. Now, here's who's going to be in the race, Mick. They're racing Kit with David Hasselhoff behind the wheel. Next to Kit is going to be the A-Team van with Dirk Benedict behind the wheel, which I thought they should have tried to get Mr. T for that. And then beside the A-Team van, you're going to have Eric Estrada on a Chips motorcycle.
Wow.
And they're going to race, dude. That blew my mind. Oh, my gosh. Wednesday, July 10th, 8/7 Central on the History Channel.
Is this just like a one-off thing, or
I think
is this going to be a series?
I don't.
Because you need Bo Duke in the General Lee.
Right? This needs to be like its own series. But they do this Car Week. It's kind of like, what is it, Discovery does for Shark Week. Mm-hmm. And they have special stuff. But this is the first I've heard of something like this going down. But just the thought of the race itself, I don't even care if the Hoff is driving or who's driving, but watching them race would be fun enough for me.
So I know they're going because it's more iconic, the van, but didn't Face drive like a Corvette in the A-Team show?
Yes. Face had his the white with the red, kind of like the stripe that they had on the van.
And of course, the van is more iconic.
The Corvette.
Well, the van's more iconic.
I don't know. Get Face, you give him the vet. You get the van, you got to get Mr. T. But I'm going to watch anyway. Sounds like fun. All right, so we got a few anniversaries we'll get through, and then we'll get on to our hotline segment. In music history, now this week on June 27th is the 25th anniversary of Aerosmith becoming the first major band to premiere a new song on the internet. Back in 1994, then this is coming from Wiki, so you can take it for what it's worth, but over 10,000 CompuServe subscribers downloaded the free track head first within its first 8 days of availability. So that was a fact that I had not ever heard of.
Well, I have heard that before, so I don't think it's just bogus Wikipedia info. Very forward thinking by Aerosmith, I guess you could say back then.
It's funny. So 10,000 subscribers downloaded the free track within its first 8 days. So I wonder if it took 8 days for them to download.
That's what I was thinking. Come home from school and it's like 27%. You're like, yes, only 3 more days.
Oh, gosh. June 27th is also the 30th anniversary for several albums. Chris Isaak's album, Heart-Shaped World, which featured the Wicked Game video that everybody knows.
Aside from the video, that's just a really good song, though.
Well, yeah, I was into Chris Isaak. He was almost like the new, or at least wanted to be like the new Elvis. He had that voice, and his music was, I don't know, more Elvis than really anybody has gotten to, at least in that era. And I like his music. But the video, yeah, obviously you're watching for a different reason.
Yes.
So on June 27th, that album dropped. The B-52's Cosmic Thing dropped with, of course, Love Shack and Rome were two big songs from that album. And also Don Henley's End of the Innocents, which, of course, had the title track, Heart of the Matter, Last Worthless Evening, and New York Minute, which is one of my favorites of his. That is a great album. So 30th anniversary for those three albums. The Love Shack video, man, that was awesome too. I just loved watching that. They were having a great time. So, and who doesn't love doing what's his name? Fred, the guy that's in the band, singing along to his parts, you know. Love Shack, baby! You know.
Love Shack has been a classic song for skating rinks and bowling alleys and just all kinds of good times everywhere.
Yeah, great song. All right, some movie anniversaries. June 23rd is the 30th for Batman, like we've been discussing. What are your early memories? Do you remember going to see Batman? I don't think I've asked you.
I wasn't into comic books at the time, but I was surrounded by the hype for the movie. And I asked the folks to go watch it. And my dad was not much of an actual going to the movies type guy, especially not a comic book movie. We ended up going. It was my first visit to a drive-in theater.
Oh.
So there was one. It just recently went out here. It's called Moonlight Drive-In in Bristol. And I remember stopping and getting some snacks. And we changed places in the car. I sat up front, and Mom and Dad sat in the back. And we watched Batman 89 at the drive-in. So,
nice.
You know, I had the experience of the Batman blockbuster plus my first trip to the drive-in. These days, we've got a really nice drive-in here where I live that does a lot of neat events too. But, you know, there was a time there in that era that drive-ins were very, very few and far between. So that was a unique experience. And, you know, I grew up watching Batman, the 60s Adam West series when it was on Family Channel every evening. So that was my Batman going into watching 89 Batman. It's a good movie. I've just never been as enamored with it as a lot of people have been. I guess because I was so stuck in that world of Adam West Batman, it was such a stark contrast, especially since I didn't read the comics at the time. But it's still a good movie. I like it. I'm just not as crazy about it as everybody else.
Well, that's a fun experience, your first drive-in. We had a drive-in that was threatening to go out, and then the community, this is back in PA, community kind of came on board and helped them get the funds together to get the digital projector that they needed. So it's still going, and we had to do
the same thing.
Yeah, we have not been back since on our little trips. We always drive past it, and I always see what movie's playing. Oh, that would be fun, but I'm always like, oh man, we're gonna have to wait until 9 o'clock, and then the kids are gonna be crazy tired the next day, and we're driving here or driving there, you know. Yeah. So it never works out that I've been able to go back to that drive-in, but I've got some good memories going there too.
It is usually a great experience, and anybody listening who has not went to a drive-in or not been in a long time, I urge you to go out, you know, friends, date, take your family, whatever your bag is, and go check it out again this summer. It's just, at least ours here, they have an ice cream shop and a snack bar, and they've got an arcade there, and it's kind of like most drive-ins that used to be around here were just a flat field. This is almost like stadium-style seating.
Oh, wow.
Every level of parking is higher than the one in front of it. And it's, you know, a big half-circle parking area. And also every area to park out in front of it has enough of a grass space that you can take the lawn furniture or blanket and throw out.
Nice.
And you're not stuck behind the vehicle in front of you. And they have the modern tech where you tune into the movie on your radio station. Right. But if you're sitting outside at the back of the place, they have this massive sound system that you can hear all over the complex. And so we take the kids every now and then. They'll run certain nights of the week in the summer, you know, like $10 a carload. However many you can jam in a car, it's $10. And those are good nights to go and take the blankets and lawn chairs and get out and just make a night of it. And I don't want to get too far off on this, but there's a lot more people doing some drive-in specific events. Jimmy Buffett over the last few years has done a drive-in concert that he makes available to drive-in theaters to simulcast all around the country.
Oh, wow.
And so our local theater participates, and it's like $20. You can go, you can watch the full Jimmy Buffett concert on the big screen. They have this big luau tailgate before it, and we have a local guy who sings a lot of Buffett cover songs. He comes and performs before it. So, yeah, go check out your local drive-in. You never know what's going on and what you may be missing there. Support those folks. It's good for all of us to keep being able to go.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. I mean, I know several people now that have their own little projectors and will invite us over and put it on their garage door out front, or something on the side of their house, and host their own little drive-in, which is fun. But
yeah, that sounds really fun.
Man, it sounds like you got a great one there nearby. Well, also on the same day that Batman came out was Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. That's its 30th. I do remember watching that one in the theater probably a week or two after it came out because I was so enamored with Batman. But I remember watching that in the theater and really enjoying that one. I haven't gone back and watched it enough, really, to get my kids into it. But I think I'm going to put it on the list to subject them to here soon.
Maybe put it on the projector outside.
Yeah. I'll have to buy a projector first, but I'm not one of those people yet.
Well, they're not that expensive these days.
They're not. Believe. No, it's but $200-$300 maybe or something. Anyway,
something like that.
All right, June 26th is the 40th anniversary for Moonraker. It's actually one of my favorite Bond films, just because around that time, I think it came out, 79? So I remember having the trading cards of all things, probably before I even watched the movie. I remember having like stickers that came with a sticker in each pack, and I like stuck a couple on my dresser, and it was there for years and years. But that's my favorite Bond, Roger Moore.
I need to watch that one. I've not watched very much James Bond in my life, but that's one that intrigues me because it has Jaws in it.
Yeah, it's got Jaws and his little girlfriend in there. And
what was the first one he was in? I just watched that one like a month ago.
Spy Love Me, I believe.
Yeah, so I've watched that one. So.
Yeah, and he was in. I think it was just those two that he was in. But yeah, that's part of the reason why I go back and watch that one too. There's some very cheesy effects. The whole scene with the snake in the pond. Yeah. It's just crazy, but I do like that one because Jaws is in there. And then one more anniversary, and we'll get on to our hotline interview. June 30th is the 30th anniversary of Karate Kid Part 3, which I remember watching that one in the theater, loving it to death. A lot of people seem to give it crap nowadays.
Yeah, and I don't understand that because nothing's going to top the first one, obviously. But I thought Part 3 was way better than the second movie.
Right, and I was kind of in that same boat because it, I guess, mirrors the first movie a little bit more. It's he's in the tournament, underdog. The second one was just a whole different story plot, in Japan and all that. But the third one, you got Kreese back, and the guy he's got to face off. He's always bullying him, and Mr. Miyagi's got that magic like Epsom salts to heal up his wounds. Just dip your arm in that and you'll be good the next day. We need some of that in the store.
Have you watched Cobra Kai?
I have watched the first season.
Me too. I haven't watched the second one yet. What'd you think of it?
I loved it.
Me too.
I thought it was like as close as you could get to what you would imagine how you would want the story to go in your brain. I thought they just hit it on every single level. And my favorite scene in the first season is, I don't know, it's several episodes in. It's when I think Daniel gets Johnny his car and they're driving down the road. I think Johnny's test driving it or something, and REO Speedwagon comes on the radio. And they're like, "Oh, great song. Yeah, this really great song." It's like the only moment they agree on something in the whole series. They're just like bonding over an REO Speedwagon song in the car. Love that part. But Yeah, I don't know. I loved the first season. I'm anxious to watch the second.
Yeah, and YouTube's doing away with its paywall, so it'll be free for all of us to watch. I actually subscribed to YouTube Premium last year just to be able to watch Cobra Kai, and then when I was done, I canceled it. But they're doing away with the paywall. It will still exist if you want to pay for it to not have commercials. But yeah. Nothing will be behind the paywall anymore, so that'll be great.
I was thinking from what I was reading that it's sometime in August, I think August or September maybe, when they're going to have it be available to everyone, season 2 at least. And then at some point, I don't know how they're going to handle it, if it's always going to be available or at some point they're going to stop showing it and make you buy it or something to watch it after that. But
I think they've done a great job. At least this was my take watching it, and the wife's as well. They reversed the roles of Johnny and Daniel.
Yep.
Where Daniel is the arrogant a-hole, and Johnny is the everyman.
Yep.
Just exact opposite of the roles in the movie.
Absolutely.
And I thought that was such a great way to go about it because it felt very familiar but totally different at the same time.
Yep.
And you mentioned
I don't
your
throw
favorite.
genius out a lot, but it was genius.
I know you mentioned your favorite scene. I'll tell you mine is when Johnny first takes that kid under his wing to be a sensei, and he said, I'm going to teach you a fighting style that your pansy-ass generation desperately needs. That is my favorite line because you can ask people around here that know me that I am so, this modern world we live in and the political correctness and stuff, I'm dying inside a little bit every day because of it. And he's right. My daughter is big into Taekwondo, and kids need some of that. Mm-hmm. They really do. Not only for self-defense, but self-confidence and just, man, there's a whole world of kids that coming up that's going to lead this country in a few years, and I'm worried about the direction we're headed.
Yeah.
But that's too political.
Well, he just, the style that they give Johnny where he is essentially living his 80s self in the modern world. If you just, his habits at home and just sitting down in front of the TV with a 6-pack of beer and
you could tell he would be a follower of the Retro Network.
He would be, yes. Nice plug there. Okay. All right. Well, that's all I've got for recurrent events. We are going to give you another installment into our TRN hotline interview segments with Batman 89 and Paxton Holly. That is coming up next. And then we will get into our main topic of MTV memories and music videos right after that. So stick around. Hey everyone, it is Jason back with the clip of the week, and since we are talking MTV this week, I came across a fun CBS News report on the launch of MTV and how it was impacting the record industry, the fans, and cable television in general. So take a listen to this as we get into our MTV discussion in a little bit.
The record industry has found a marriage with television. The results are videos, top musical hits put to pictures. Another result is MTV, Music Television, a nationwide cable channel. Tonight, Sam Ford has a report on what it's all about and what it means to the record industry.
Want some milk and cookies?
No, we want our MTV. Like it or not, this seems to be what American music is coming to. The 60s and 70s had top 40 radio. The 80s have MTV.
Leave it to MTV. Anytime, all day, all night.
Music television, the Warner Amex cable channel that plays video clips in which the singers often become actors in rock operettas, mouthing the lyrics to their records.
I can't get to sleep. Think about the implications.
These clips are called videos, and they have launched groups with names like Men at Work, The Stray Cats, and Duran Duran. Previously unknown, but now selling millions of records because of exposure on MTV. An ailing record industry sees the nationwide channel that reaches 13 million households as the best vehicle for promoting records in decades.
I think that this is the first thing that's ever come along that has really given the industry a new boost, and is probably directly responsible for its revitalization in the last couple of years here.
Increasingly, record stores are installing television sets to play MTV or their own videos to promote sales. Albums are starting to come out with As Seen on MTV on the label.
When we put on like a hot MTV video, it's when we put it on in the store, then they say, oh yeah, MTV, let's get this.
MTV's target audience is teenagers.
You want to watch TV instead of watching like a show, you watch MTV. I usually turn it on just so the videos. There's nothing else on. Yeah.
And research has shown that in cities only partly wired for cable, certain recordings played on MTV sold extremely well in the wired part of town, not so well in the other part.
MTV, music, television, video music, 24 hours a day, and it's stereo.
Since MTV sound can be routed through a home stereo set, it has threatened FM rock stations, forcing them to open their playlists to new groups.
I want my MTV.
We are owned and operated by ABC, and there are very strict policies that we have to follow to add records. We have now included MTV as one of the ways in which we can add a record.
There are some FM stations that really don't consider MTV a threat.
I think they have their heads in the sand.
MTV has sparked a new video production industry, which is turning out 30 or more tapes a week to promote record sales. Some are elaborate productions costing upwards of $100,000. Others are less costly and depend on particular scenes or storylines to make them memorable.
They've opened up a market for filmmakers, aside from television commercials and feature films. There's creative filmmaking. There aren't a lot of people forcing guidelines on you. You can use your imagination.
These days, almost any major rock and roll group that releases an album will also do a video of at least one of the songs.
Okay, you got ID. Okay, thanks. Thank you.
And budding young bands like the Plimsolls of Los Angeles invest in videos, hoping to get that big break after exposure on MTV.
Doing for bands what just record sales wouldn't. Bands are being able to be seen across the nation where normally you probably wouldn't even find a record.
We got concert information for Rick Springfield with Sparks opening for them.
MTV's programming is all tied together by its staff of on-air personalities called video jocks, who record segues of music news and happy talk to play between the videos. The creator of MTV is 29-year-old Bob Pittman, a former radio station program director.
I think we always thought it'd be a success, but what it's turned out to be is a phenomenon that exceeds the boundaries of cable television and music, and is, I think, a phenomenon of the youth culture today.
But there's one group that's not happy with MTV, many black artists who have been told their music doesn't fit the format.
She's a very kicky girl.
That's what's happening. We're being sat in the back of the bus television style. And if Pittman gets away with this, and there are other cable shows that form, they're going to try it.
Blacks and MTV is the subject of our next report. Sam Ford, CBS News, New York.
Your dial tone to the past. It's the TRN hotline.
Hey everybody, this is Jason on the TRN hotline, and we are wrapping up our series talking Batman 89 and the 30th anniversary. And I've got on the line with me Paxton Holly. How are you, Pax?
Good. How are you, Jason?
Doing fine. I've known Pax for a while now, had me on a couple episodes of the Nerd Lunch podcast, and he's also, you're just like a podcast I would almost say podcast freak, but
it's super freak, yeah.
In a good way, yes. Pax is on the Cult Film Club podcast with Sean and Jamie, and then now the one that I've been hooked on is, I guess your newest one, which is I Read Movies, where he basically reads the movie novelization so you don't have to, and you get to hear all the fun little tidbits and everything from the novel that you don't get in the movie, or maybe a deleted scene or something. So those have been really fun, man. I've really been enjoying those.
Yeah, I'm glad you've been liking those. I've been a fan of novelizations for a long time, and I still read them. So when I did a couple for Nerd Lunch, I decided to, like, why don't I just turn it into my own podcast? So I spun it off, and it's just, I like the extra stuff you get in the novelization, and it's just fun kind of bringing that across and some of the crazy stuff that can go on in the book.
Right, exactly. And that's just listening to like the Gremlins one, and I know there's some extra stuff in Ghostbusters and all that stuff. It's just interesting to me to hear, but and I guess maybe it's not necessarily the interpretation of the film, but it's also partly the writer, the author, who is interjecting some stuff as well, right?
Yeah. The author has to, fill out a little bit of time, since they tend to show things in movies and they're telling you things in the book. So he'll fill out some stuff. There's some of it working on early drafts of the script that have extra things in them, and they put them in there. So it's it's like a perfect storm of stuff.
Yeah, it's very fun. And we will plug, he's got the Batman episode coming up soon. Probably when you hear this, it's already dropped. Very excited to hear some of the tidbits in the Batman novelization, because I've never had a chance to read that. But before we get into that, let me just start out by asking you, what was your Batman experience when it first came out? How old were you? Did you get a chance to see it in the theater?
Yeah, summer of '89, I was at the end. I had just finished my freshman year in high school. Mm-hmm. And I was very excited. I was a comic book reader. I had been a comic book reader for a couple of years at that point. I didn't read Batman as much as some other things, but I was a Batman fan, especially in the Justice League books. And so I was looking forward to this, especially when the trailer hit and then all the merchandising hit and everything. I was super excited for it. And I wound up seeing this in the theater. I think I even saw it a couple of times, which was rare back then. But I definitely saw this in the theater a couple of times.
It was, like I've said on a couple of these interviews, that summer, really the whole year of 1989 was the first that I really remember going to the theater multiple times, not just for Batman, but for all the movies that dropped that summer, and even earlier and later than what would have been, like our peak time to go see movies while we're on summer vacation.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was just such an interesting time, and like you said, the merchandise just around that was incredible.
Yeah, and how crazy everyone else got, because up to that point, Batman was just kind of I read comics, I watched the cartoons, so I was a fan of Batman, but not really a lot of other people were until this movie dropped, and then everyone was a Batman. Everyone's wearing a Batman shirt. Everyone's wearing, like you have the commercials. I have a VCR tape of stuff I recorded just off of TV pertaining to just the movie, like all the news outlets and everything were all showing like little mini Batman documentaries, and like they were showing like full like hour-length documentaries on TV, and so I recorded a whole bunch of those. I mean, it was pervasive, and it's hard to even describe now like what that was like back then.
Yeah, you craved every little bit you could get from TV, even from the radio to a certain extent with the Bat Dance and all of the movie clips that were interjected into the song. It was just, we couldn't get enough. And seeing, waiting, like I was talking with Tank about waiting for Entertainment Tonight to come on, or watching At the Movies with Siskel and Ebert on the weekend just to see some clips of the movie, before it dropped.
Yeah.
And everybody was just hungry to see how they were going to, put Batman in this day and age.
Yeah. And I remember as closer it got to the movie, I was even like shows I'd watch on TV. I'd be so excited for the commercial, hoping I would get to see a Batman movie commercial. And it was just like, it was ridiculous. Like I wouldn't go to the bathroom or anything. I was like, there may be a Batman commercial. I got to wait.
So what was your impressions once you finally got to see the movie? Did it kind of blow your mind, or
Yeah,
Up to your expectations.
like I was pretty pumped for it. Like this was one of the first times, like I was really excited for this movie, and like with all the pop culture surrounding it, this one kind of built my own pop culture thing, because this was, I think, the first time I bought the novelization for a movie, specifically like a month before it came out. Like it came out 4 or 6 weeks before the movie. I bought the novelization and read it beforehand. I was that excited. I bought the comic adaptations. I read those. And I mean, even like this was, I think, the first time I really cut out like newspaper ads for the movie and kept my tickets, and like all that kind of started here with Batman. So I was pretty excited for it. And I saw it. And like you said, I mean, for me, it blew me away. Like I loved every part of it. I loved Keaton as Batman. I liked the story. I go back and forth on Nicholson's Joker, but I'm back to liking him again. But at that time, when I first saw it, I loved it. I thought he was great. I mean, I love the Batmobile. It's still my favorite on-screen Batmobile. And like the whole thing, like beginning to end, I couldn't even tell you if I had any problems with it, because I remember just loving it. And I was so excited, and like read everything I could get my hands on, and like record like documentaries and stuff on Batman coming out. Like I remember cutting out the first 2 weeks, like my paper on Friday, the Birmingham News would print box office on Fridays. And like I cut out the first 2 weeks of Batman's box office. So it's like the top 10 movies of that week. And so the first 2 weeks it was number one. And like I still look back on that just to see the other movies like you had mentioned that came out that summer. And there's a ton of other stuff that came out. I was like, oh my Lord, that was all that summer. And I couldn't believe it. Like there was a Star Trek movie, Indiana Jones movie. There was like Ghostbusters 2, like all this stuff had come out. And like it was magical. I mean, that's the best I could put it. In 1989, when that movie came out, I loved it. It was magical.
Yeah. I remember having that same feeling of just even going from movie to movie, but still it had that almost usurped everything around it, because I think Ghostbusters 2 was just the week before. So, no wonder it kind of, a lot of people kind of thought it tanked, or it didn't measure up, and the critics were all over Ghostbusters 2. But you think that it only had a week by itself, and then Batman zoomed in and covered it. So it would be fun now to think about going back and sitting through the summer and going through and watching those movies as they were released now,
right,
and see how your perspective might have changed knowing what we know now. But oh yeah, it's. And I think it still holds up pretty well. It's the one that I go back to. Some people have that little distinction to go to like Batman Returns or even Batman Forever. I think that one's kind of had legs over the years, more so than like Batman and Robin. But I love going back and watching. I've watched that one, the original Batman 50, 75 more times, whatever, than all of the others. And it still has that. Yeah, I can still get that feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. And watching it this time, I watched it seems like Forever has starting to get a little bit of its own comeback. I mean, if not for Carrey's Riddler alone, it's kind of making its own comeback. But for me, of those 4 80s and 90s Batman movies, the first one, it's my favorite. And it's the one I go back to every time I watch it. I just love it. I can nitpick a few things I don't like this time, but it still completely works for me. Even as silly as he can't move his neck, I mean, it doesn't bother me. Like I love the suit, I love the Batmobile, and it just still totally works for me.
It still bugs me watching Batman Returns and have him rip that thing, his cow.
Yeah,
it's like
I don't like that.
Yeah. What are some of your favorite scenes now that you look forward to when you're rewatching it?
Oh, obviously, I like all the ones. I mean, I like all the Batman ones. I think Keaton looks great in the suit, and I think he performs it well, just physically. Like that opening prologue, the "I'm Batman" scene. It still kind of gives me chills. Like I still love that entrance for Batman and him holding him over the ledge and saying "I'm Batman," and then just stepping off the ledge and disappearing. I mean, that is still almost perfect. Like I love it to this day.
Oh, yeah. And it's weird because, we were talking about the comic book adaptation of the film, and it's not in there. they have that scene in there, but he says, "I am the Knight" or
I
something.
am the Knight. Yep.
It's not "I'm Batman."
Yeah.
So it's kind of I don't know. It's weird how that changed, and if you go back and look at the comic book now, it's more dialogue really than anything that's different than what's in the actual movie. There are a couple other little things. The one that I really love is at the end of the movie when the Joker falls and they go over. Batman's on the ground and they go to check, and it's Robert Wool's character. Can't remember his name now.
Yeah.
Through the cowl, and he's in Michael Keaton Batman. He's kind of hiding in the shadows,
yeah,
without his cowl and without his cape and everything. So it's, I don't know. I love those just little subtle changes and seeing something different in the book. But you got anything you want to? Can you give me a couple little things from the novelization that might not be in there?
The two you mentioned are in the novelization as well. He doesn't say "I'm Batman," which was ad-libbed on set by Michael Keaton. It was originally the "You don't own the night." He says "I am the night," and the thing with Alexander Knox is in there. If you look in the middle, like one of the biggest things in the middle, like so Bruce Wayne goes to Vicky Vale's apartment and he meets Joker. That whole section in the middle, it's the same but a lot different in the book. A lot of the dialogue is split up into a couple of different scenes. So in the book, it's a little bit shorter in the apartment, and then Joker winds up kidnapping Vicky Vale and leaving with her, and then they wind up all going downtown to Gotham Square, where they're unveiling the statue of the founder of Gotham, John T. Gotham. And then there's a whole scene downtown that's not the end scene. They go there first, and then they go there again later on in the movie. So I'm not surprised that they were like, well, we're not going to Gotham Square twice. We're not going for the parade and for the statue thing. So we're going to take out this first part. But it's all in there in the book, and kind of interesting to read because it's so different than the movie and how they've switched around a lot of the dialogue.
Yeah, and that scene, I do remember because I just read the comic book here recently, when the Joker comes up to Bruce Wayne and says, "You ever dance with the devil in the pale moonlight?" He says, "I always ask that of all my prey." And then in the movie, he says, "I just like the sound of it." And it's different in the comic book. He says, it's just something really subtle. It's not the biggest thing, but you think about that line being in Bat Dance and being well known for the movie, not being in the book is strange.
Yeah, it is strange because you expect all these things from the movie, and there are several times you don't get it in novelizations, and it's Batman one's the same one. There's so many iconic parts that aren't necessarily in the book, and it's just kind of weird to read that.
Yeah, but it's still cool at the same time too.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's interesting to pull stuff like that. I mean, like one of the other iconic parts is Jack Nicholson does his Jack Palance impression, the whole "You're my number one guy," and that's not in the book. And because it was ad-lib, but it's like, and so it like the scene leaves without it, but you totally expect it. So that, I mean, that's just an interesting thing to go through.
Yeah, it's funny how ad-libs can be more iconic than what the actual writers were thinking when they wrote the script. But that's just really cool around that. Well, what as kind of wrapping this up, what have you collected over the years? Have you kept all those newspaper clippings and everything from back in the day? Have you added more, to your collection over the years around Batman?
Yeah, from the Batman '89 stuff. Yeah, I still have I still have the novelization, which for I read movies. I read the same novelization I read back in '89, so I still have that. I still have the comic adaptation. I still have the newspaper clippings. I have the box office, the actual ad for the movie. I still have my ticket that I went to see in '89. I have a few of the cards. I had a bunch of the trading cards, if everyone should remember the Topps trading cards. And I have a few of those left. I lost a bunch of them, but I was able to hold on to a few of them. And I have, if you remember, Taco Bell released 4 Batman cups. And they weren't, I guess they were kind of movie specific, but they kind of hedged their bets a little bit. It was a little bit comic book, a little bit movie. And I still have all of those too as well. I actually found those in my garage like a couple months ago, and I was like, oh yeah,
fun, man. Yeah, it's just such a powerful experience, and just everybody that went through it can remember that summer and everything. And I think that's obviously part of the reason why we want to go back, and we're always looking for the next Batman 89 style in whatever toy line or new T-shirts, whatever, all these companies can throw at us.
Right.
Because we just want to remember all that. And it's cool, yeah, because I've got a little collection myself of Batman stuff. It's not really anything I'm not trying to collect. One line. It's more a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and it's fun to just kind of wait and like I was saying, go back, and I want that 89 Batmobile in this Hot Wheels line.
Yeah.
Well, I've got a whole wall of Batmobiles and Hot Wheels and Matchbox, whatever, all of those. I've got a little collection of that as well.
Oh yeah, I did that too. I mean, when Hot Wheels came out, then that was a couple of years ago. So like like modern stuff, if like a Batman 89 thing comes up, like a lot of times I'll at least look for it, and more often than not I'll buy it. Like I bought that Hot Wheels Batmobile because it's big and it looks awesome. It's really good. Yeah. And so anything like that, or I'd look for that. I never was able to find they put out a Keaton Batman figure. It never showed up here. I was never able to find it, but that was one I really would have wanted. I wanted a good Keaton Batman figure.
Yeah, I remember passing on that one that I think it was NECA that put it out at Toys R Us.
Yeah.
Rest in peace. But I passed on it, and then I just never went back and circled around and got it. But I do have the one that's based on the NES game that's almost like purple and blue.
Oh, yeah.
That one I did get my hands on, and that's probably my favorite from just that era. But obviously, it's a newer figure, just a different paint scheme, and you still get that Batman 89 suit. Anyway, well, dude, man, I appreciate your time, and just thanks for coming on and talking a little Batman, reminiscing a little bit about that era, and just remind everybody again where they can find you online.
You can find me on Twitter at Paxton Holley, my name, PaxtonHolley. We talked a little bit about I Read Movies. It can be found wherever you listen to podcasts. And hopefully the new episode will have dropped by the time this comes out. So you can go check out I Read Movies, the Batman 89 episode.
Yeah, and I also want to shout out movienovelizations.com.
Correct.
Which is kind of in conjunction with that podcast and what Sean and Jamie are doing over there, because that's really a fun resource if you've kind of gotten into these movie novelizations like I have since listening to the podcast and such, and now I'm in thrift stores kind of looking around for Ghostbusters or a Batman novelization. Now that's kind of on my radar to pick up. But yeah, that's a great resource in conjunction with your podcast too, I know. So go check that out as well. And of course, Nerd Lunch still going, kind of closing.
It's winding down, but it's still going. Yeah,
still going. So we've got what, 300 some episodes?
Yeah, I think we just put out, I think, 332. We just put out that 332nd episode, I think.
That's nuts, man. That's nuts. Well, maybe someday we'll get this up to 300 and something on TRN, but it's just fun to go back and you listen to the podcast and you're like, oh yeah, if you want to listen to this, go back to this episode, and we talked about this on this episode, and you've just got this whole library of podcasts about pretty much anything you would want.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's always like something you can reference in the show. Be like, oh yeah, go back to this episode.
All right, Pax. Well, I appreciate you coming on.
Thanks for having me, Jason.
And we will be right back after this.
Turn it on, leave it on. America, see the music you want to see.
I want my MTV. All right.
I want my MTV.
I want my MTV.
24 hours a day on cable TV.
I want my MTV.
Yeah, too much is never enough.
And welcome back to the podcast. We are going to talk about our favorite MTV memories and music videos in our topical discussion this week. And Mickey and I, we've decided to bring in a special guest this week. And we've got Eric, what Mickey calls our resident music expert, on the line. How are you, Eric?
I'm good. How are you guys doing?
Doing great. And we know you've got a pedigree in music, you even play a little bit, I hear. I have not listened to your cover songs, but Mickey has been telling me I need to go check them out here.
You're not missing a whole lot.
Oh, now, come on, don't be modest, because I go on his site, ericvmusic.com, and I really like your stuff. Like I said, a lot of your songs I like better than the original version.
Appreciate that.
Well, I do need to go check it out just to see what all the hype is here. But we just thinking about our topic this week and early memories of MTV. I was a little bit young for the launch of MTV, which I think was August 1st, 80 or 81.
1981.
81, okay. So I was about 5-6 years old and didn't hit me until later, but we did have cable, and I remember kind of growing up with MTV and the VJs and everything. So we'll throw it over to you first, Eric, and tell me about your experience with the launch.
Well, I was 11 when it launched, and we didn't have cable, like cable. We had just basic channels. So I didn't get to see it a whole lot, only when I went to a friend's house. So it was probably a year or so later before we actually got cable that allowed us to watch it at home. So our first interaction with it was at a friend's house, and just seeing the very first videos, they were just completely stupid. It was just, they had no idea what to do. And so the band was just like walking around on some soundstage while the music, it was just, it had nothing to do with the songs. And so really the first video I remember having some kind of thought behind it was Thriller, when the Thriller video dropped. It was directed by John Landis, who had directed American Werewolf in London and some other movies. It was like it was a big deal. Before that, though, the videos were just, it was just a hodgepodge of, hey, let's do this while the song's playing. It was, they were just, like I said, they were kind of stupid. But yeah, there were all kinds of shows after MTV dropped. There were all kinds of regular channels. They had video shows. But they would never play the same from day to day. So you might see video on Monday and never see it again for another week or so. So it was just really hard to see them because we didn't have cable, and you didn't at 11 you don't spend a lot of time at your friend's house watching MTV. So it was probably a year and a half later before I actually really got into watching videos.
Gotcha. I remember actually I have a very kind of blurry memory of music videos being shown at our local skating rink. And so while you're roller skating, they had a screen up and they're showing videos. And I remember it being a big deal because they would show Thriller, and it was like scaring the little kids, probably me being one of them at the time. So I don't know, this is like mid 80s probably. And they eventually removed the screen and stopped doing that because of Thriller.
I can't imagine something much better than seeing all these kids on roller skates doing the Thriller dance, though. I mean, I'm sure that was going on.
No, what was happening was everybody. So it was on the far end of the rink. So you get around there and people are just stopping right by the rail and just sitting there and watching. They're not even skating,
Oh.
So, I never saw any zombie dancing attempts on roller skates, but that would be cool.
Yeah, that's a shame.
I do remember that they did that video drop. They played it every half an hour. They played it because the original video is 13 or 14 minutes long. Yep. And so they played it every half an hour. No, I'm sorry, every hour on the hour. They would replay it. And 2 days later, they had to put a disclaimer on it because it was A, it was scary, and B, because it was promoting the occult, quote unquote, promoting the occult. Yeah. And so there had to be a disclaimer on it that it was A, it was scary, and B, it wasn't promoting the occult. I remember that vividly.
Yeah, it was almost like a mini movie, and the song itself is still pretty long. I want to say 4 or 5 minutes at least, but tacking on that whole extra.
It's not your typical radio song.
Yeah,
it's so long.
But I think that's one thing MTV always done. I won't say better than other networks was event television, because if they had the spring break things, they done the movie awards, the music awards, Halloween specials. They would plug that stuff endlessly leading up to it, to where it felt like, can't miss television, and it usually was can't miss TV when MTV put it up.
And I remember the countdown.
I also remember
shows too.
early on. Yeah.
Yeah, because they would do like the top 100 videos of all time or whatever.
Yeah.
And it was always Thriller at number one. Every year. And then it had to have been like in my high school years. So like sometime in the early 90s, I think they even promoted it that there was a new number one video, and it was November Rain by Guns N' Roses.
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Took it over. Yeah, I remember that pretty vividly. It was a pretty big deal because, you get down to the last few, it was always like Sledgehammer and you know, Thriller, and then they put November Rain at number one year. I was like, whoa,
Well, you got to think, though, that was probably due more to their shifting demographics, too.
Right.
The previous era of MTV fans, Thriller was their number one video, but they were probably experiencing that changeover of a whole new crop of fans, and November Rain was their Thriller.
Yeah, that was a pretty epic video. And that was long too. That was probably at least 7 or 8 minutes.
Yeah, that song goes on and on like a Lord of the Rings movie. It just never ends.
Yeah. So Mickey, I know we've talked before, and you got cable kind of late in the game, maybe towards the late 80s. So what was your first experience with MTV?
Well, we got cable in 88. Before that, the only place I could watch cable was at my grandmother's house, and I'm here to tell you that MTV was not allowed in her house. So I was devoid of it for a long time, and we got it. It still didn't really connect with me because when I first got cable, I was all about, oh, look, here's Nickelodeon, this thing, USA Cartoon Express, and there's wrestling everywhere. And so I really got into MTV late. I would say like 89, 90 when I had that awakening in the summer being out of school where you don't want to go outside. All you want to do is lay on the couch and watch MTV all day. So like 1990 is the most vivid year I remember for that. Things like MC Hammer's Can't Touch This and John Bon Jovi's Blaze of Glory and Faith No More by Epic. The first time I seen Epic by Faith No More, that was the first music video that actually kind of blew me away.
Nice.
I didn't really listen to that type of music, and the video seemed weird, and the song was weird, but I was just enamored with it to the point of, man, I hope they show this again here in the next hour or two. And they did play it pretty regularly.
And they did. Yeah.
That was a great video. The fish flopping around and then the piano exploding at the end. Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
That was such
That's a great album, though.
And that was in that era they were doing, I can't remember what they called it, like 4 in a row or video block or something. They'd play like 4 back-to-back videos without commercials or anything, and you were always hoping you would get that and Blaze of Glory and a couple of your other favorites to come through together, but they never did.
They called them rock blocks, I think.
Yeah, okay. I just can't remember that.
Yeah.
And they made that big to do with Thriller. Well, it was that same year, or maybe it was I think it was the next year. They hyped up MC Hammer's Too Legit to Quit video debut. They hyped that thing forever. And I remember, like I said, MTV done a great job with that. My brother and I and 2 of his friends came over just to watch that premiere. And you think about that today.
That's amazing.
How good of a, nobody promotes something as simple as a music video, but the way they hyped it, you had actual people getting together to watch it. That's incredible how they could pull that off. Whether it was any good or not, it's irrelevant. It's just the fact that they could make you think it was going to be something special.
Yeah.
Right. And everybody's got 4 or 5 minutes to sit down and watch a video. It's not like you're asking everybody to come in and, watch a movie or an episode of a television show or something. It's just really simple. And then you could keep rotating it. Like Eric said, I do remember that happening on multiple premiere videos where they'll just, show it every hour.
Every hour on the hour. Yeah. Yep.
So yeah, some of I've got a particular memory. It would have been around 87 because this is when the song came out. I remember my neighborhood friend Tim coming over and we staying up late and watching MTV, and the video for Midnight Oil's Beds Are Burning came on. And we're watching that, it's just the guy is like having a seizure or something.
When he's dancing,
yeah. And, he's got that voice, and during the video, if you remember the video, he has these like shadow. His like whole head is like a shadow, and it comes in. And he's got that that.
Sounds
and
like
we were
Bobcat
just
Goldthwait.
laughing hysterically at that. We're like waiting for the next one to come on. And I don't know that memory sticks out of my mind. Watching that in my living room with my buddy Tim up the street.
Because a friend of mine from high school and I would always do that in the halls at school. We would like walk by each other and just go like that guy would in the video. Yeah, I mean, just I don't know why, because we were stupid. I mean,
We all lambast MTV for what it is today, but previous to this whole entire change to the network, they done a really good job of following the ebb and flow of their audience when they would start debuting hip hop songs finally on MTV. They were a little more reluctant to do that, but just embracing heavy metal with the Headbangers Ball and doing the spring break specials. They done a really good job back then of just breaking up the monotony of just music videos with something just a little different. And I wish they were still like that, where they were, we all do wish they were still mostly music videos. But back through the 90s, they done a really good job with what they chose to mix in with the videos. Just enough to change the subject in your mind a little bit from music videos, like the Pauly Shore Show.
Oh my gosh.
He fit the audience of MTV, and it wasn't music videos, but it was just something just a little different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Beavis and Butthead was,
oh my gosh.
I remember monthly contests early on in the mid 80s. And it was always something like the one that sticks out in my mind the most is you won a weekend hanging out with Van Halen.
Ooh.
But or one of them went to, I think, Jamaica with Bon Jovi. I mean, they would run contests like that almost every month. And it was just, and people would call in and that's how they, and usually those contests debuted with like somebody's new album or a new single or whatever. And I just remember those were always happening, and I was always calling in trying to win the contest.
The contest they ran that sticks out in my mind the most, because even as a kid, I'm like, WTF, was they ran a giveaway for Axl Rose's mattress. Does anybody else remember this but me?
Oh my gosh.
And
no.
And in the ads for it, it was Axl and Slash was saying things like, man, if you only knew how many miles were on this thing. And I'm like, who would want this?
I do remember that. I remember
who
that.
Who would want this?
Wow.
That's so funny. I've forgotten all about that.
Oh my god.
That one just sticks out in my brain still today.
I wonder if somebody still has that somewhere, like whoever won it,
Well, I'm sure they tried to use it to pick up chicks. It's like, hey, back at my place, Axl Rose's mattress. Probably as close as you'll ever get to the real thing.
Right.
That's funny. That's funny.
Yeah, talk about your fake eBay product right there. There you go.
Right
you
there.
can just throw one up there. You can make some dough.
Fake eBay product. Oh, that's awesome.
Mattress. All right, let's get into a little bit of our favorite videos, ones that we just were waiting around for them to play, or once we first saw them, they were kind of mind-blowing. What's one for you, Eric?
Probably would have to be Metal Health by Quiet Riot.
Ooh.
Because there was several shots of him wearing that mask, that metal mask, and playing to the crowd. The crowd looked like they were just insane. I had not been to any concert at that point, and so just seeing that kind of crowd at a concert was just, I was hypnotized by it. That's probably the first video I remember that just kind of just stuck with me, was that one.
Now, Mental Health, that's Bang Your Head.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
I remember. So I lived in a small town, and I had to take the bus basically about 9 miles to the school where I went. And I remember it was with the high school kids, so they would bring like boom boxes on the on the bus. And I remember that song just puts me on that bus hearing that, and they would come around and they would take their class rings, turn them upside down and like smack you on the top of the head. Oh man, I was bullied so hard by those high school kids. And that song just connects me with that. That
it just triggers you.
It does. It does. But yeah, that's that image of him with the mask is, I can see that happening. What about you, Mickey?
Well, I already talked about Epic, but there were some other ones like I always look forward to when the Humpty Dance video came on.
Oh my gosh. The Humpty Dance.
Yeah. We love that video. Oh but I was a big fan of Beavis and Butthead, and that was the first time I'd seen Gwar. And I see in the videos on Beavis and Butthead, and I'm always looking on MTV from that point on, like, when are they going to play a Gwar video? I want to see this Gwar. So those are, and then
and the answer is never.
Exactly. Yeah, it was only on Beavis and Butthead, as far as I know. Yep. But a lot of the music videos we just kind of used as background noise. It's funny, you think of tuning in to MTV for the videos, but we would have it on when we were in the living room in the summer. But we were waiting to get to the news segments with Kurt Loder and the VJ stuff and the shows like Yo MTV Raps.
Right.
So actual individual videos, there were just a few that stuck out. And I know we already talked about it, but November Rain was a big one that I always looked forward to hitting the screen. And most Guns N' Roses, the Welcome to the Jungle, the video version where they filmed their sound check or something before a concert, I always loved that video.
Yeah.
Yeah. Paradise City, that was at the concert on the stage.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there were some good ones. But yeah, that early 90s Guns N' Roses videos, Don't Cry, I mean, what else? A lot of those, the one for T2, when they were, they kind of going back and forth with the
You Could Be Mine
movie clips. You Could Be Mine. Yeah, those are some great.
And speaking of, the actual November Rain video was great, but then they made the video version of their performance of it at the MTV Music Awards, where Elton John came out and played piano with them. That video was great too. So there were multiple versions of November Rain video.
Very true.
I forgot all about that. Yeah.
One that messed me up as a kid. I remember being there's a lot that probably messed me up, but I was over at a friend's house, staying overnight. We're watching MTV, and Genesis Land of Confusion came on with the puppets.
I hate. Oh yeah, that's creepy. I still can't watch that video.
Me out. Yeah. It was to the point where I remember it being a problem, like nightmare fuel, for several weeks.
Nightmare fuel.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. But it was just so weird. And, it was just up until like last year, I think, that I went back, and I've been doing these little, what I call bodacious breakdowns over on Rediscover the 80s, where I go back and watch a video I haven't watched for a while and just take little WTF screenshots of, throughout the video. And oh my gosh, watching that again, I'm like, how did I ever function after watching this as a, whatever I was, 8-year-old? It's just so crazy. But there was a few like that, and I guess Peter Gabriel's Sledgehammer to some extent was more of a mind-blowing, suck you in, all the different little stop motion animation, and seeing clouds go across his face. That one was crazy too.
Well, speaking of Genesis, I'm going to change the subject to Phil Collins. I just remembered this when you said that, but his video, Two Hearts, where he had the Ultimate Warrior. Man, being a big wrestling fan, I love that video too, with the Ultimate Warrior just beating the crap out of Phil Collins in the wrestling ring.
Yeah. You must have been big into Cyndi Lauper then too, right?
Yeah, well, not necessarily her music, but yeah, I dug her.
She had all those WWF wrestlers in her videos.
She had what was the guy's name? The big guy with the long hair.
A lot of those.
No. He had dark hair, curly. He was kind of fat.
Captain Lou.
I'll look it up while you can talk.
Yeah.
Yes, Lou Albano. Yes, Lou Albano.
Yeah, I think he played her dad like multiple times.
Yeah, I was gonna say he was her dad in Girls Just Want to Have Fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she had a bunch of them in the Goonies video too. Goonies Are Good Enough. Yeah, there's several. I don't know. I can't remember what the connection was and how she became a fan and connected with, I guess, Lou or one of them, and just started, let's have him in the video. Come on.
I think I've ever known the connection for that. I don't.
Well, I don't want to get off on a tangent. Maybe I'll do an article about it. But it's not so much at Cyndi Lauper. It was her boyfriend, manager Peter Wolf, that was big friends with Michael P.S. Hayes of the Freebirds from World Class. And at the time, Hayes was in the WWF there in '84, and I'm pretty sure that was the original connection. But
yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
See, we should have just asked the resident wrestling expert.
Hey, yeah, man, you need to know something wrestling, just pitch it out there.
That's awesome.
All right, any more videos you want to throw out there that just have stuck with you over the years?
Share If I Could Turn Back Time.
And I know why. Yes. Wow.
Hey, man.
Oh, my God.
You know, it hit when I was 13. What do you do?
Wow.
Well, yeah, along those same lines as we will mention in the recurrent events segment, how about Chris Isaac?
Wicked Game.
Wicked Game.
Oh,
yes.
Wicked Game. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anniversary of that coming up.
Yes.
I think the other video that really sticks in my mind is David Lee Roth, Yankee Rose.
Mm-hmm.
Yankee Rose. I'm trying to remember that one.
He's in the tribal makeup in the convenience store to begin with. Yeah.
Yeah. See, if you'd have said California Girls, I would have known that one.
Oh no, this was the debut album or the debut song off of his solo album after he left Van Halen. And when we get through here, go look it up. You'll remember what it is. But it's over the top. He's trying to make sure he outdoes the guys in Van Halen, and so it's over the top.
Yeah. Even I think the cover of that album, he had that tribal paint on too.
It's the same. It's the same outfit. Yeah.
So is that the one with Gigolo, or is that later?
That's.
See, I don't know what it is.
Gigolo's on the one before that.
Okay. I remember that video. I obviously remember California Girls, but
yeah. So those two songs are on an EP called Crazy from the Heat. I think there's only like 4 songs on that. This was his first full album with Steve Vai as guitar player and Billy Sheehan as a bass player.
What was the one where he's climbing the mountain?
Skyscraper.
Okay. So, all right. I'm getting there. It's been a while since I've been back to
not to send you down a David Lee Roth rabbit hole, but
I'm glad to do it. Mickey, you got another one you want to throw out there?
No, there's hundreds of them, when they hit your brain, you could sit and talk forever about, but those first ones that popped up, I guess, were the most iconic for different reasons for me.
I've got one more that I just couldn't wait to watch, and me being the cartoon lover, animated series guy, Running Down a Dream by Tom Petty, that one always impacted me. Just watching that, it was in black and white, he's going through that like little cartoon world with that guy smoking the cigar, and it's just a fun video. He gets to the point where he's like hovering above skyscrapers, and man, that one was just awesome. And there wasn't too many like that. I remember some crazy ones. What was that one by Green Jelly with the claymation? Claymation Rambo. You remember
Three
that
Little
one?
Pigs.
Yes.
Oh.
See, there was some like that just did something totally different. Like, this one went animation, that one was claymation, and those ones just stick out in my mind as just not the typical, let's film during a sound check or during a concert. Yeah. And do something totally off the wall. And you think about that, I don't know where that came from. You think about that Green Jelly one, that was a one-hit wonder because of that video. It had nothing to do with their music, So it just became an earworm after watching that video, and you went out and bought the album or bought the single at the time. I think like I did.
Single.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, those ones just kind of stick out in my mind. The weird ones, the ones that just weren't the film in the band somewhere on a dock in New Orleans with fake instruments, Yep. journey. Anyway, all right. Well, you guys have anything else you want to add to our MTV segment here?
No, I just think they should have done more mattress giveaways, though. I think that would have been a big hit for them.
Yeah. I think they give away Martha Quinn's mattress.
Or shares.
Or shares, yeah.
Oh, share. Oh my God.
All right, guys. Well, Eric, thanks for coming on with us.
Yeah, man. I had a great time.
Appreciate your insight. We've got a fun little game show we're going to do for game night coming up that Eric joined us. That was a real fun recording that the other night. So be on the lookout for that as we debut it. I believe the first week in July 2nd, you'll be able to listen to that podcast. But
nice.
Eric, yeah, I'm looking forward to more stuff on the blog too. I know you've got some plans, maybe even to do a podcast coming up. So I'm all in.
Got plans. Don't know if they're going to come to life, but I got plans. I got tons of plans.
I got big plans.
Got big plans.
Well, we appreciate you joining us, and thanks for your contributions to the Retro Network. And we're going to end this segment, and we'll be back to wrap things up right after this.
This beautiful Sunset Strip property has everything a rock and roller could ever want.
Axl Rose has to move.
A bar, a barbecue, and a pool within throwing distance.
To a quieter place where he can collect his thoughts.
The bed's never been slept in. I'm not saying it hasn't been used, it just hasn't been slept in.
Away from the noise of angry neighbors.
This wall's only been smashed once. Some guy's head, but it's been repaired. It's like new now.
Evict Axl Rose. Take possession of his condo, his furniture, his stereo, and his aura.
If these mirrors could talk.
And after you move in, Axl will throw you a housewarming party. So send a postcard to MTV's Evict Axl contest or pick up the phone and call. And someday soon, all this could be yours.
You can have the pad. I'm keeping my aura.
This MTV contest brought to you by British Knights Athletic Footwear and Carefree Sugarless Gum.
All right, Jason and Mickey back with you to wrap things up on this episode of the Retro Network podcast, and we're going to give you a little preview of what's coming up on the network this week.
Depending on when you hear this, it may be old, it may just be fresh hitting the site, but as we're recording this, if people have heard about the new Garbage Pail Kids app that's available, we've got a review of it. Kevin Hellions, Kevin Decent, whatever he chooses to go by from day to day, has reviewed the app. And to go along with it, Adam Hoju has put together a post of 15 of the fans' favorite Garbage Pail Kids cards. Those are both dropping on the same day this week. Man, those cards, too, I was going through Adam's piece on that, and I was looking at some of those cards, and just the flood of memories that came back was just incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Should be dropping this week. I think you already mentioned earlier in the show, the TRN Up All Night. No, you didn't mention it. We were talking about the TRN Game Night podcast.
Mm-hmm.
To go along with that, as we're recording this tonight on TRN Up All Night, instead of movies this time, we went with a bunch of old school game shows, remote control, double dare, a whole night of binge watching there. And all you got to do is press play and have your popcorn ready and be on the couch. Point Break. We talked about that a couple weeks ago, how it mirrors Fast and the Furious. So I went back and watched it yet again after we talked about it and done a whole movie review. That'll be dropping this week. What else have we got going on? We'll have a retro roundtable. You've heard mine and Jason and Eric's take on some of our favorite MTV music videos. Well, the rest of the staff at TRN, we have a retro roundtable article coming up with their picks and the videos included in it. And there'll be some other surprises here and there throughout the week.
Sounds good, man. Yeah, I'm anxious to see what other music videos people choose that may be nightmare fuel for them when they were kids. Oh, man.
And we've also added, I guess we should mention, we've added to the site. If you've been visiting it, you find the latest articles, podcasts, videos. Well, now we've added a few sections where we're grouping all of any kind of reviews together, game reviews, movie reviews, music, whatever we're reviewing, food reviews. We also have a section of products we endorse at TRN. Things like we talked about the Space Invaders DOS game. We just added it so you can go find it real easy.
Mm-hmm.
If you go through our links, it don't cost you a penny more, but it does help support the Retro Network and everything we do. And we also added a curated content section. Besides what we're putting out, there is a ton of great retro content throughout the internet. And we want to highlight some of it, some things that we didn't write or come up with, but we think you should see too. So you can check that out, a few links.
Yep, just click on the image or the link there, and it'll take you right over to the origin site, basically. And you can read about the headline there. And yeah, I mean, we've got a bunch of great writers and content providers, I'll say, at TRN, but we're not the only game in town. And there are some really good people out there that have that same retro-minded content that we like to put out. And we got to give them some props too, because we're the ones keeping this retro thing together, as we as we get older. There'll be, for too long, there'll be like sites popping up on smartphones or my first smartphone, whatever.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. Anyway.
And speaking, I'll tie this back to last week's episode. We talked about the Stranger Things New Coke collector packs. If you're listening and you missed your opportunity to do that, there is still a way to get those. And I put the link to the product under the products we endorse section, so you can go check out. And you may be a little late to the game, but you can still get your new Coke and your collectible Stranger Things Coke bottles.
Yes. When are you doing your review?
I hope to film it tomorrow night. And if I can, it'll be up on the site this week. I'm going to say objectively or optimistically, next weekend it'll probably drop on the site.
Gotcha. Yeah, I put mine up last week. Last weekend we filmed with my two boys, and even my little daughter came in and wanted to try at the end as well. But I took the challenge and I was victorious.
You nailed it.
I nailed it. Yeah, that was real fun to do, to have Pepsi, regular Coke, and new Coke in 3 different glasses. I found these fun Stranger Things glasses at the dirt cheap store, and man, that was fun. I was worried I wasn't going to nail it, but I did.
Yeah, you done a great job. And your kids really seem to enjoy it too. So that was good.
Oh yeah, they love anything. Anytime I get excited about something, they want to try it. They want to do something. So I'm going to have to film more of those, just so we can put them up there on the site for my purposes.
Well, I'll tell you,
for everybody else, yeah.
When my youngest wanted to start a food review channel on YouTube, I was skeptical, but I joined her in it. And I tell you, that is some of the most fun I have every week, is filming those with her. So, doing that stuff is great.
All right. Well, be looking for that stuff, and you can connect with us on social media at TRN Social. You can also find our personal accounts. I'm at RD80s, and then Mick is at Yesterdayville. So find us on Twitter. You can connect with our personal accounts, but obviously we want you to follow us on the TRN Social accounts. And once again, thanks to Pax for coming on, talking a little Batman with me. And again, we'll be back in 2 weeks for our regular show, and hope you'll enjoy the TRN Game Night podcasts coming up in place of that. So thanks so much for tuning in. You can subscribe. I've got us up now on iHeartRadio, at all your favorite stuff, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, and we're on YouTube now as well. We're putting our audio podcasts direct to YouTube thanks to Podbean, our wonderful host. So we're in a bunch of different places. Wherever you like to listen to your podcast, go out and find us and just search for the Retro Network. So, Mick, always a pleasure. Had fun with this.
You be safe on your travels.
I will, man. I will. And we might get a chance. We didn't really talk about it, but we're trying to work out a spot. Maybe we can get together and have breakfast or something on the road trip. So we'll see if that works out or not.
I hope it does.
Me too. All right. Well, we'll see everybody in 2 weeks. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks for listening to the Retro Network Podcast channel. Make sure you listen to all of the great podcasts we have to offer right here in this feed. If you enjoy our channel, please give us a 5-star rating in your favorite podcast app. Connect with us on social media by following TRN Social, and visit the retronetwork.com website for your daily retro fix. Come back next week for another episode of the Retro Network Podcast.